Have you ever pondered over the possibility of a third world war? It's a chilling thought, isn't it? The idea of a global conflict on the scale of the two world wars we've already endured is nothing short of terrifying. The uncertainty, the fear, the sheer unthinkable scale of it all. It's enough to make anyone shudder. But it's important to remember that these fears are not without basis. The world has seen conflict on this scale before, and the potential for it to happen again is a very real threat. It's something we need to be aware of and something we need to understand. To do that, we need to look back at the events of the past, specifically the circumstances that led to World War II. By understanding what happened then, we can perhaps gain some insight into what might trigger a similar conflict in the future. To understand the potential for a third world war, we must first revisit the circumstances that led to World War II. Rewind to the early 20th century, a time fraught with political and social turmoil. The world was a simmering pot of tension, with major powers jostling for dominance and influence. This was a period marked by the rise of militarism, nationalism, and imperialism, all contributing to a volatile environment where conflict was just a spark away. In the East, Japan was expanding its empire, driven by a thirst for resources and a desire to establish itself as a global power. Meanwhile, in Europe, Germany was reeling from the harsh penalties of the Treaty of Versailles, which ended the First World War. The national pride was bruised, the economy was in shambles, and resentment was brewing. This created fertile ground for the rise of Adolf Hitler, who promised to restore Germany's dignity and power. Simultaneously, in Italy, Benito Mussolini capitalized on social unrest and economic instability to establish a fascist regime. He promised stability and order, attracting the support of many Italians disillusioned with their government's inability to deal with the country's problems. In contrast, the Soviet Union was going through a period of significant change. Under the leadership of Joseph Stalin, the nation was industrializing rapidly and expanding its military might. This was a time of ideological conflict, with communism and fascism on a collision course. In this climate of escalating tensions, the League of Nations, an international body intended to prevent wars, was proving to be largely ineffective. Its inability to enforce its decisions and the lack of participation from major powers like the United States left it powerless in the face of rising aggression. All these factors combined to create a situation ripe for conflict. The world was a tinderbox, and it only took the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, the invasion of Manchuria by Japan, and Hitler's defiance of the Treaty of Versailles to ignite the fuse. The result was the most devastating war in human history, World War II. Now, let's fast forward to our present day and examine the current global situation. Fast forward to today, a world that is vastly different yet eerily similar in some respects. On the surface, our planet seems more interconnected than ever before. The advent of technology and the internet has changed the way we communicate, conduct business, and even wage war. Yet, under this veneer of progress, old tensions and rivalries persist, simmering beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. Just like in the lead-up to World War II, the world today is witnessing a rise in nationalism and authoritarianism. Populist leaders are gaining ground, fueling divisions and stoking fears. Simultaneously, the world's superpowers are flexing their military muscles, engaging in a high-stakes game of power politics. In some corners of the globe, the situation is even more volatile. Long-standing conflicts and territorial disputes continue to fester, creating a tinderbox of tension that could spark a larger conflagration. The Middle East remains a hotbed of strife, while in Asia, the South China Sea dispute is a potential flashpoint. On another front, economic disparities and social inequalities are widening, creating fault lines that could lead to social unrest and political upheaval. Climate change, too, is a potent threat, as competition for dwindling resources could fuel conflict. Despite the significant strides we've made since World War II, the specter of war still looms. As we navigate this complex and unpredictable landscape, we must remember that peace is not a given, but something we must actively strive to preserve. While the world has changed significantly since World War II, the potential for conflict remains. So, where does this leave us in terms of the possibility of World War III? We've revisited the lead-up to World War II and analyzed our current global situation. The lessons of history are clear. Conflicts escalate when diplomacy falters. The key to avoiding a third world war lies in international cooperation, maintaining dialogue, and learning from our past. While the possibility of World War III is a sobering thought, it serves as a valuable reminder of our collective responsibility to uphold peace and prevent history from repeating itself.